And thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. Tonight we are talking about a controversy that has erupted, but it's about us, it's about my profession. The GJA, the Ghana Journalists Association, is waging a war against assault on journalists, and they are deploying a tool called media blackouts. If you assault a journalist, regardless of who you are, the GJA will issue a fiat for media organizations to boycott you. In other words, you will not be covered. You will not be heard as part of the tools to sanction impunity against journalists. That has thrown up some disagreement because some in the fraternity, including the chairman of the National Media Commission, Yabude Eboafo, disagrees with this particular approach. He believes it is unproductive. It is one that we're going to be looking at here on PM Express, and let's do so. As you know, the GJA and the NMC now have been pitched on this particular subject following the pronouncement made by Yabude Eboafo, who is the chairman. His point was a simple one, that he believes that this is a unilateral position, and the decision to boycott and to black out individuals won't yield the right results. His point is that yes, there is impunity against the journalists, but you cannot use impunity to fight impunity. That's his position on the subject. The GJA isn't happy with that particular position as expressed by him, and they are fighting this quite vigorously. Now, if you look at the GJA's options in dealing with this particular matter of assault of journalists, they served notice last year that they will do three things: take legal action. They will also embark on a strike. In other words, if this happens, and we believe that it's in our interest to do so to protect the rights of journalists and freedom of expression, we'll decide that there will be no PM Express that day, that you tune into Joy News that day and you see nothing. There will be no news on myjoyonline.com. There will be a complete media blackout, just so that you know that we are serious about fighting for our own rights and resisting impunity. But the GJA said that's one of the tools they want to deploy. And then you have the last one, which is the blackout, which is what they've deployed since last year. We've seen at least this year, we've seen two cases. The Hawa Kumsin case. We've also seen the case that they've been deployed now. That the recent one is what has generated a fair bit of controversy against Farouk Mahama in Yendi, the MP for Yendi. So these are the three options on the table for the GJA, and they are deploying all three at the same time. But this is generating a fair bit of controversy as far as that is concerned. Now, why is the GJA taking this matter on? And why are they taking this particular drastic measure? Because of the numbers on your screen here. Because if you look at the total number of individuals, journalists who have been assaulted, 35 since 2019. That's quite a lot. And the number of attacks on media institutions is 14. Well, just think about any profession in this country. Either you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a nurse, or whatever you do. If you consider that many of your colleagues in that same industry, 35 of them within this period, 2019 to 2024, have been attacked simply because we're doing their jobs in the line of duty. In our case, some of them have been killed, right? Maimed. Some of them are currently living with permanent scars of that attack. That tells you a story immediately that is completely unacceptable. And then, beyond the fact that individuals are being attacked, 14 institutions have also been attacked. So what it means is, let's take an institution, a profession like the medical profession. They work in hospitals, health facilities. So if you do the comparison, this is equivalent to people simply going to a hospital where doctors and nurses work and attacking that institution. That, if it ever happens, you know what the doctors and nurses do? They strike, because they want action and they want that matter addressed by the state agencies empowered to do so. Well, GJA says, well, in our case, the tool that we are in full control of, the microphones and the pens, and we'll use that against an individual who takes the law into their own hands to attack us. Now, this graph here, now breaking down the numbers, is a very interesting graph because it shows us where the bulk of the attacks have been and which years, right? Now, if you look at 2020, what happened in 2020? 2020 was an election year. And that's in the last several years since 2019 has been the year with the most attacks on journalists. And it is the reason why the year's beginning, and already we've seen two, the beginning of the year, and the GJA is warning that if this continues, they'll have to deploy other tools. And that is why they're deploying the Blackout tool now the way they're deploying it. Because history tells them, and that's all, as you see on your screens here, that in election years, journalists get caught up in the storm, and many of them get assaulted, right? 12 in 2020. We don't want to get to that point this year. And something must happen. GJA says the Blackout tool is a very effective tool whilst we pursue the cases in court, but also potential strike. Whilst those two are being considered and being pursued, the Blackout is immediate. You can simply call a press conference, and in solidarity with everybody else, the fraternity can take a decision against one person. So this should place this in context and why this is happening at this time before we get into the thick of the campaign period where journalists will be traveling across the country covering political events and then they become exposed, right? We'll talk about that with my guests when we sit down for a conversation. Now, the NMC itself, its pivotal role is to protect journalists, is to protect the sanctity of this particular profession, right? And ensure utmost standards are kept in this industry called the fraternity I love and I practice every single day. Of course, if you also believe that the media has injured your reputation, you go to the NMC, right? So they are there. What are they supposed to do? Protect us. Many cases have gone to the NMC, both people complaining about the journalists and the job and the fact that they're being professional or unprofessional. The NMC adjudicates this particular matter and they decide one way or the other. In the cases before them, if you look at their own records, the NMC's own PBB estimates 46% of the cases before the NMC have not been resolved. Many of these cases have nothing to do with assault of journalists, but they have to do with the NMC's own work. Why is this important? We're looking at the NMC as a tool for promoting professionalism, but also protecting journalists, right? And the interest of journalists. Now, what we are talking about reflects in the World Press Freedom Index. And over the period, as the number of tags grow, we've seen a decline in our index over the period. And the line shows and tells its own story. I don't have to say much about this because it shows the decline over the period. And when you look at it though, it hasn't been great in the last 3 years. In fact, that decline here is pretty sharp. It is the lowest we've had in a long time. And you see that reflected. And let me make it even more stark for you, because you begin to see where we used to be, 23rd, and where we are currently, 62nd. That tells a pretty graphic picture. Something needs to happen and must happen immediately to fix this particular problem. And for me, if you compare where we are to other countries on the continent, it makes for pretty heartbreaking reading, because if you look at Burkina Faso and Niger, they are above us in the index, and Burkina Faso and Niger, as you know, they are overrun by coup makers. They've broken out of ECOWAS, right? And yet, in a country like that where you have a military junta, and military juntas have a reputation for being brutal against press freedom, certainly, this doesn't make for a good story for Ghana, where we still have a democratic government in place, and we are still below Burkina Faso and Niger when it comes to the World Press Freedom Index. That is a story that needs to be dealt with and dealt with immediately. And that's why we're going to have this conversation with my guests who are joining me after this. Stay with us. PMSS is always brought to you by Syntex Tank. It's also brought to you by Pepsodent and by Ghana AIDS Commission also. And I always recommend Syntex Tanks for you, no matter your water needs. Syntex Tanks has it all. Syntex Tanks is first to introduce the double layer tank, and now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex Tanks is first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana, and now you also introduce you to the customer specs. In other words, it is bespoke. What you want is what they give you. They also have 7 years warranty. Nobody else has that in Ghana. So why don't you pick a phone and call them? Because they will provide anywhere in the country. 0244-335-168 is the number to call them on. Pepsodent Cavity Fighter is one that is necessary for the protection of your teeth, but also it is fortified with perfluoride and microcalcium ingredients, sealing tiny and invisible holes in your teeth. This prevents cavities, keeps your teeth strong and mouth healthy. Pepsodent Cavity comes in 175 big family pack, 120G Ejaka pack, and 65 grams and 12 gram sachet. So you can always get what you can afford at any time. Don't just use toothpaste that brushes your teeth. Use Pepsodent that protects your teeth. Pepsodent, every smile matters. My guest joining me for this conversation is Professor Kwame Kaikari, Professor of Journalism and Mass Communications. He's also the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa, who will join us. In the studio with me is Albert Kabana Jumfo. He's a GJA President. In the studio with me, Kojo Ponkruma will join us later on phone for a conversation. Samson Lala Yenini also joins us now. I want to start with Professor Karakari if he's on. Do we have Professor Karakari on? Okay, we've lost him on the line there. We'll try and get him back into the conversation. Samson is on with me?
Yes, Evans.
Hi, Samson. Great to have you join us. Samson, let's start with the position as expressed by the chairman of the NMC. I spoke to him on Newsnight an hour or two ago, and it was clear that he was speaking in his personal capacity. But his point is important, is that deploying this tool of blacklisting people is not a productive tool. What's your take on that?
I don't know what he means by it's not a productive tool. Where productiveness means what?
It doesn't fix the problem. And that what will fix the problem is taking on the cases in court.
Look, I'm in court doing cases for a number of journalists, some who have been maimed. You know the Latif Idris matter. The police have been in court saying that the thing that happened on their compound, they don't have a CCTV, footage for that day. They didn't, as if the CCTV didn't work on that day. So, it's one thing pursuing a cause in court where the rules have been laid down and are strict, and you may not be successful. Okay? You may not be successful for a number of reasons, but this is sort of an open and shut sort of process by which they are trying to ensure some sanity. This is within the GJA, this is within the journalists, that they can use the power of blacklisting, so to speak. If you and your followers are the reason, you take, for example, that in the Latif Idris matter, for example, if it were the case that the decision was taken that the police will suffer, a blacklisting, or there will not be coverage for the police for as long as they didn't do the right thing. Okay? Can you imagine what the results will be? It will be very effective. Okay? So I don't know what he means by this is not productive. It is a veritable tool, and I will urge them to use it and use it very well.
Samson, stay with me for a second. Let me come to the GJA president on that. So, Samson, who is a lawyer and also a colleague of ours, who's been campaigning on this matter for quite a while, says it's a tool you should use. But the NMC chairman disagrees. First, give me context, though. Today, he was insisting that we would take him out of context. He was speaking at an event that you were present.
Of course.
What event was this?
This is GJA US Embassy Workshop to train journalists ahead of the 2024 elections. In fact, it is dubbed Journalists for Peaceful Discourse in Kumasi. So this is our own platform. We invited him.
Oh, so you extended an invitation?
Yeah, we extended an invitation to him to come and speak. Little did we know that he was going to use our own platform to antagonize us and to chastise us.
What did he say, really? You were there.
Yes, I was
had
there.
What did he say?
No, the truth is, first, he said that this decision is only popular, but dysfunctional.
Okay.
1, 2, he said that we can't address impunity with impunity.
Yeah.
So what it means is that our position is also an impunity itself, and also referring to our position as dysfunctional, which is an insult to the entire fraternity. And remember, Evans, this decision is not a unilateral decision of the GJA. We had an extensive engagement, an extensive consultation with key players. And not only key players in the industry, heads of some selected media institutions were actually consulted. Senior and veteran colleagues, our reps on NMC, which he shared, because NMC is a composition of reps from different constituencies or different bodies. GJA has 2 reps. So we also consulted our reps. And again, aside that, we had the support of the 3 other umbrella bodies. And if I talk about 3 other umbrella bodies, we are talking about the GJA Primpac Media Foundation for West Africa. And we all share the same conviction. And at the timing for this, it is the right time for us to take this measure, because we all know that we have suffered the collateral consequences of this attack in the past. And it is becoming one too many, and statistics shows. And I was watching you when we were showing and walking us through the statistics. Just last year alone, in 2020, because it's an election year, we recorded 12 the whole year. Now, from 2019 to 2023, average attack on journalists on the media is 4. That is 4 every year averagely. Now, last year, within a spate of 8 months, March and October, we recorded 9 attacks on the media. You understand? And we all saw it. Out of the 9, only 2 are saying logical conclusion. Only 2 were prosecuted. And even we all saw the outcome of the prosecution. We all saw the sentence or the conviction. Weak, very weak, because the police could only prefer weak charges. So what we are saying is that the timing we find ourselves, especially in the election year, if you are a politician, if you are a government appointee, if you are a state appointee, you don't have the temperature. You don't have the temperature, you don't have the capacity to accommodate journalists. Just stay away. Otherwise, we will stay away from you. Because we are in a democratic dispensation where we all believe, or it is a known fact that an attack on the media is an attack on our democracy.
And his point, though, is, we'll come to the impunity bit,
yes.
But his fundamental point is that it is not productive because it doesn't fix the fundamental problem. That to fix a fundamental problem, you need people to be punished through the courts, and that's what you should be pursuing, spending your energies there, not...
So if we spend our energy, we have spent our energy in finding out the perpetrators of our menstrualist death for 5 years. We are still spending our energy. And like my colleague and my big brother Samson said, he's a lawyer. We spent our energy on Latif. When Latif was attacked, this was at the entrance of the CID headquarters, which are CCTV. On that very day, it was non-functional. It wasn't working. We called, in fact, that was the first time the GJA, in fact, came out to call on our members to blacklist the police service. Because we felt that they were just playing with us. And this is the very body, very institution supposed to protect journalists in this country, to provide the safety and enabling environment for journalists to thrive and do our work. Till today, there are people, we call them the officers in black, have not still brought the perpetrators to book. Meanwhile, they know those who did that. The police are aware, and I can say it without missing words. So what we are saying is that if the system, which is supposed to protect us, The system is supposed to ensure that we get justice for our colleagues who have come under such attack, has failed to do their work.
Then you're taking the matter into your own hands because your tools are pens and microphones.
And microphones.
You're going to deprive those people who assault
These are weapons
of those tools
of course
that you have.
And it is working for us, Evans. In a short while, I can tell you that, like we said, we started with our Kumsen, and in less than a week, she reached out to call for a truce.
He called you personally?
She called me personally, calling me personally, and ready, in fact, demonstrated a preparedness and readiness to cooperate with the GJA to bring the perpetrators to book. And
did she agree that she assaulted?
no, she didn't assault. We said that a tax.
Her team around
her supported.
So, but you hold her ultimate responsible.
Because we believe that as a member of parliament, if your team, because if your attacks around you are harmful or can pose threat to journalists, it is important to do it, to give out those people.
So since this call to you, what has happened?
Oh yes, yeah, we have. In fact, we are making an arrangement to meet. We are here to welcome her and her team, the press center, to look at the possible way forward. So the case, like I said, at least we've chopped sources. It is because it is. I don't think that she will pick the phone and call and follow up. It is for the reason.
Did she apologize to you?
I can say that she sounded remorseful. I don't want to use apologetic, but she sounded remorseful and also readiness. Like she is now showing interest in the matter, unlike before.
Has this also reported to the police? True. This case with
yes, it has been reported to the police.
Okay, but the people around her, have any of them? Do you know if any of them?
Nobody has been invited. We had the pictures. We had videos.
And the police, they have this.
The police have this. We have sent it to the police. We have petitioned the IGP. We petitioned the IGP to call on the leadership, that is the police hierarchy, to meet with them on this very matter. So now, and could you believe that, Evans, the issue was reported at Kotokraba police station in Cape Coast. The regional police command invited the investigator to come along with the victim, that is with the complainant, who is our member. And when we went, the police was rather doing the bidding of the party, telling them that the party want to settle the issue amicably with him. Is it the responsibility of the police?
In this Howard Kumsin call, though, if this is a criminal matter that the police are investigating, and she's sounding remorseful, she should just hand over these individuals to the police.
She is saying that. In fact, she still stands by the fact that she still doesn't know the people who actually assaulted her. But we have given enough evidence telling her that the people who did are her people. So now what she is coming to do is that she is coming to meet with us. We will give her whatever evidence, whatever detail we want. This is where we need her cooperation.
Professor Karikari has joined us now. Let me go to him. Prof, thanks for joining us. We lost you earlier. I want to get your take on the deployment of this Blackout tool. What's your assessment of it as an effective tool to fight impunity against journalists?
Well, my view on the media taking a position to black out any newsmaker or any public official is that the media have a right to take any such position when they consider that the action of the subject, the person, the official, is highly disrespectful of the profession of journalism, is highly offensive to the Constitution's provisions of the freedom of the press. For a minister to behave like that to the media, any sector of the media, and without rectifying that action, such a politician deserves to be blacked out. It's as simple as that. They don't deserve the labor of the journalists. After all, we are here in this country when both the MPP and the NDC at one point or another threatened to boycott your very station and ban your very station from covering activities that they do. So why can't the media also do the same? If the media said that we black out Parliament, we black out the presidency, that would be extremely wrong. But for an individual politician who is campaigning for power, if that person chooses to abuse the media cannot do that person's work for them, because they are telling the media that we don't want you. So then what business has the media to continue to provide that service that such a person says they don't want? So for me, the media blacklisting or blacking out coverage of any subject, it's in their right.
Yabudi Ayeboafo say that you cannot fight impunity with impunity, as in blacking out these individuals amounts impunity. What do you say to that assessment?
In what capacity was he speaking?
He says he was speaking.
The National Media Commission or what?
He says he was speaking in his personal capacity.
Yeah, well, he may speak in his personal capacity, but if you are in a certain public office, it becomes very difficult to express your private opinion about this, something that affects the institution that you head. It becomes almost untenable for you to say that, because once you head that institution, if you choose to express that private opinion in the public space, you are creating difficulties for yourself, especially if it goes counter to what your institution stands for, namely the protection of press freedom in the country. But I don't agree with that statement that they are fighting impunity with impunity. I mean, there's been too much abuse of our journalists, too much disrespect for our journalists by political parties and their operatives. The elections coming, we'll see more of this, because that's what has happened all the time during election years. Party activists molesting, attacking, slapping, seizing the equipment of journalists, radio people, and so on. I think there must be an end to this.
And you think blackouts offer a deterrence?
If the blackout is effective, the problem is, can the GJA's blackout be effective? Because half the media in this country or more are owned by politicians. So the politicians owning this media will continue to use their media. So that's where it becomes a problem, a technical problem, whether or not it can be effective. Otherwise, if it can be effective, then it can be a deterrent. That's my only concern.
And please stay with me, because something Lada Yinini, who's a lawyer, joins me on this. Something that's the problem, is it not? And that goes to the heart of what Yaibuda Ayeboafo was saying, that this is not effective, because how do you even enforce this across the country? You may get a few media houses like us, if we evaluate it to see and determine that yes, there's a case there to pursue, we will black out. We've done so. But how do you get everybody else to comply? And if there's no compliance, then it isn't effective, is it? Hello, Samson.
Well, first of all, it isn't. Yes, Evans.
I can hear you, yes.
First of all, it is not fighting impunity with impunity. This is a legitimate, is simple, is a convenient and pragmatic means of validating the rights of the journalist. Now, it's right, and I join Professor Karkari in this issue. The media must be the first to learn to come together to protect themselves, to protect their own. That's the sad commentary about the media itself. Divided and unable to unite to protect their own. Really terrible. Now, Evans, of course, this must be done hand in hand with making sure that all the time the evidence of the impunity and violations are gathered and are used for purposes of prosecution and even for civil actions. I have just filed a civil action of police, violating, beating journalists. I have just filed one case. And even the people that you are filing the case for pause to ask you the question. In the end, if the court declared that we were right and the police was wrong, what at all would the court do for us? And they are right, Evans. I have done several cases. I don't remember when the court declared that and in almost all the cases, it's been against the police or some security agency, the national security, or call them whatever. And I don't remember the court in the end saying, in a civil matter, in the end saying, having violated this person's rights so much, they deserve a certain sufficient amount of compensation. I don't remember getting 20,000 cedis for any of the journalists who were violated. You would have the court award 8,000, 10,000, 8,000, 12,000 in the most. Efia Pukua and her friend were assaulted. When they were assaulted, the evidence was gathered for police to do the prosecution, because you can't do private prosecution of a criminal matter. The police did not go on because they needed to work under the guidance of the Attorney General. And at the time, it was very obvious that the Attorney General was interested in protecting the officers of the state who committed the crimes against the journalists. That case didn't go anywhere in the criminal prosecution. We had to do the private prosecution in a civil case, which was successful. In the end, the court said they should get 10,000 cedis, and then police should issue apology to them publicly. Yes, they did. They issued apology to them. Also, what do you call them? The National Insurance Scheme people should issue apology, and they had to do apology publicly, and they had to pay about 8,000 or so. Evans, the point I'm making here is that even the police prosecutions, often we have seen they are lackadaisically conducted, they are not effective, the private civil actions, and very little compensation, not enough to deter the wrongdoers. So this is a good tool, and the journalists must wake up and make the best use of this, because it is possible that this can bring some very good results.
Mr. President.
Remember Erastus Asaridonko.
Yes.
Erastus Asaridonko was threatened by a sitting member of parliament in July of 2021. He was threatened, and the man used the words that he needs to be beat. He needs serious beating, and that he should be beaten up, and that if he were the president, he will make sure that Erastus was giving a good whipping. When Multimedia filed a formal complaint to the police in July of 2021, I led Erastus to the police to file the complaint. Just December last year, under the auspices of the Ministry of Information, the mechanism that has been introduced to help, fight this impunity, the police were assembled to give a status update of how they were dealing with these cases. Evans, the police said this case was only reported in the media and it was never formally, no formal complaint was made to them.
I recall that. And this was an open public forum. Yeah.
I was shocked. I asked them, are you guys serious? This came with a formal letter detailing what had gone wrong and the evidence to you. And you are here in 2023 December telling the world that a report that was made to you in 2021 July does not exist. It was not made to you formally, so you are not following it.
Yeah,
if you Google, you will see the letter on Google.
And yet you went to a police station to file that report. Now, Mr. Jumfor, there's a point there that Professor Karikori makes. There's something else to reiterate, which comes back to the effectiveness of Blackout.
Okay.
Enforcing it and getting journalists to comply. How are you doing that? Because we've seen that even when you've issued that fiat, many media houses do not comply. We still see the individuals who are talking on the media houses. So doesn't that go to the effectiveness of that too?
You see, thank you, Evans. We are very much aware of the media structure, the ownership structure in the country, as mentioned by Professor Kakari. And we are also aware that most of these politicians are behind most of the stations. But what we decided to do, like we said, in fact, when you look at the data we have in terms of number of radio stations, TV stations, that's electronic media, the regions, only Accra, we have over 120. That's of TV, for TV, and then for radio, we have about 50 something, almost 60. But the question, our target were the main, that is the multimedia companies, the media houses, the conglomerates. So we decided, what we did was that because we know at least the owners of some of these major media houses, what do? We reached out to the leadership and heirs of these media institutions.
You mean you're talking about independent media houses?
Independent media houses. In fact, not including even state media houses.
Okay.
Because it's all under because journalists everywhere is under the watch of the GJA. So we dealt with the state media, about the 4 state media, which is the GBC, GNA, Graphic, Times Corporation. Yes, and then we selected the independent media houses, the major ones, which includes multimedia.
Are you happy with compliance?
So far, I can say that multimedia has really done well.
When you say multimedia, you're not referring to us.
No, I'm telling you, yes. I thought the question, yes.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm talking about generally. Generally, the media fraternity generally. Have you seen compliance?
Of course.
Because as for us, no doubt.
Of course,
yes.
Our expectations have been met, and I can
across the country.
Across the country, because you see, when we started, in fact, the first day we came out with the directives and the call on the media to blacklist our cuisine. The resistance. We saw the resistance. We saw the public opposition and all that. But I think that after some days, people started.
What about Farouk's case?
Farouk's case, like I said, because others have already joined the bandwagon, they've joined the call to blacklist our constitution. It was very easy when we called on them to do same to Farouk. And you can, in fact, like I said, but for the biting effect, I don't think that somebody like our council, an MP, Minister of State, will just reach out. On Farouk's side, we have received the number of calls, and I don't think that it's appropriate for us to.
I need to ask you that when you did the press conference last week, very quickly on Farouk, and I did speak to the Kojo Nkrumah, who's information minister. Yes. He had called you, and you told me on Top Story that you view that as a threat on your life. You're going to file a police report. Have you filed it? In
fact, what happened was that I discussed with my lawyers, my legal team, and then they felt that okay, it was in response to I have him on a broadcast list. I have a broadcast list. So whatever I share, it goes to him. So I think I shared the notice, that is invitation for coverage to journalists, and so it was more or less like in response or reaction to that. So my lawyers advised that we should just let it be for now, and then so that we can let's monitor its reaction or behavior subsequently. So for me, for us, we can say that we have enjoyed the cooperation of the majority, even though we don't, like I said, we were not expecting 100% blackout, knowing very well that even the ownership structure. The media is threaded in secretive. We all know it's in opaque, and this was captured in the 2023. That is the media report,
which I shared.
Yes.
But there's another point that Yabuda Iwafu makes that I want to put briefly to Professor Kaikari before I bring in Kojo. And Professor Yabuda Iwafu makes the point that, for example, if the police becomes the target after an abuse of a journalist by an officer and they fail to work on it expeditiously, and the GJ says black it out, that then means information coming out of the police service will be blacked out. His argument is that you are shortchanging your audience, the people of Ghana, by that particular action, and that in itself is a right to information, freedom of speech issue that must be addressed, and that ultimately it proves counterproductive. What's your assessment of that?
That public, that is so-called short-changed. What do they do when the media are suffering with impunity like that? So let's bring it down to the public, as you say he put it. The political parties are public, particular public. What do their members, what do their leaders, what do they tell their members, their candidates, and their foot soldiers about how to handle media people? It's been going on, and we don't hear anything from any presidential candidate, any party chairman, any party secretary general, any women's organizer, any youth organizer about how their parties should treat journalists. Now, this thing about the police, yes, of course, the police is such a major institution that what they do must always be in the public domain. But listen, about 4 or 5 years ago, the Media Foundation for West Africa, GJA, the NMC itself, and other organizations, Primpad, sat down over months and came out with an understanding, a document on police-media relations, with, systematic, a very comprehensive document about setting up joint committees to investigate things, joint committees for consultations and so on a healthy media-police relationship. The current IGP was a member of these processes from A to Z. Why have they set it aside? Why have they not used it in training recruits? Why have they not used it in training or in orienting their top officers? Why is it that even since this whole arrangement was made, rather the situation of police attacking or police brutality on journalists has rather escalated? Why? So what public is Mr. Ayabuafo talking about? What public? The public as individual citizens, unorganized, don't mean a thing about rights of people. It is organized groups who always must fight for rights of people. And here we are talking about institutions, political parties, people who want to or are already running affairs of this society. And if they don't respect basic constitutional things about rights of journalists, where else do you go? Where else do you go? Because, again, the other side of this whole thing with these politicians is that there are too many politicians who behave in a very thuggish manner. Politicians who, even in front of the police, on radio, openly, talk about we should be beaten, talk about he should be whipped. Very backward, very reactionary, very uncivilized utterances by politicians. People who are running our affairs according to a constitution,
Prof.
a civilized document. So there is a culture of backwardness among so much of our political parties.
And thankfully, I've just been joined by Kojo on phone. He is the information minister. Mr. Ponkruma, thanks for joining us on this. First off,
Thank you.
I mean, this debate around the effectiveness of blackout, media blackouts as a tool to deal with impunity against journalists. Do you endorse the GJA strategy to use that, to deploy that as a means of deterring others from assaulting journalists?
Evans, I 100% endorse that as a strategy by the GJA because as part of their various other tools at their disposal, though it may not be 100% successful in achieving a full blackout because media ownership is diverse and editorial interests are different, at least it raises full attention onto the subject and helps bolster the various efforts at getting some resolution to this. So it is a legitimate tool, and I encourage the GJA to continue to use it, even if it means for Parliament or for the Presidency, and that's where I'll disagree with Professor Kwame Kakari. Whether it's the judiciary, the Parliament, or the Presidency, or individual politicians, or corporate entities, it is a legitimate tool. Yes, I concede it will not be 100% effective because of the diversity of ownership and editorial interests, but it will help to raise full attention onto the subject. I think there are two things that the GJA needs to do, however. Number one, not just deploy this tool because they have received a report of an alleged attack on somebody, and therefore they proceed to say, because we've received a report of an alleged attack on somebody, the person who is alleged to have perpetrated that attack is blacked out. I think that will fail a prima facie test. I think the GJA needs to put in place some very clear and mutually acceptable standards that will allow some establishment that, yes, indeed, and I think like the example Samson cited, it wasn't just a report, but it was a case in which a known person had explicitly done X, Y, Z. I mean, in the case of Hawa Kumsin, for example, if you listen to the GJA president, he concedes that Hawa Kumsin herself was not involved in it, but persons associated with her are believed to have been involved in it, and they proceed to seek to exact a blackout on her. That may be a bit of a gray area. And you notice that Professor Kakari, in his analysis, if I wrote down his words well, he then says for a politician of her stature to do that. Even the GJA hasn't said she has done that. So you then notice that we are going into gray areas. So it is important for a proper litmus test to be established of when will this tool be deployed. I agree with the tool 100%, but it is important for that tool to be clearly, or the circumstances for which it is deployed, to be clearly developed, so that it's not an instance of somebody said persons close to Evans Mensah have done this, and therefore we announce a blackout on Evans Mensah. But what is the litmus test? And then also, I think the second thing that the GJA should do, and I know they are doing it, I want to encourage them to do a bit more, and all other stakeholders. The NMC on its own cannot resolve these matters. The legitimate institution that can resolve these matters of attacks on journalists, I think something has alluded to it already, is the Ghana Police Service and the Judicial Service. We all have to hold the police and the Judicial Service consistently accountable for the cases that are reported to them and see how they follow through. We at the Ministry of Information adopt a minimalist standard. When it is drawn to our attention, we draw the police's attention to it that deal with it. But we have to consistently hold them accountable so that they can't come around and tell us that we didn't hear about this or there was no evidence about this or something. I believe that if we consistently hold the police and the Judicial Service accountable, I know the IGP is interested, I know the Chief Justice is interested, we'll get to that point where no police command or police office can then, play hanky-panky with these reports as they come to them. So, simply put, yes, I 100% support this as a tool. It will not be effective, but at least it will draw full attention. But what we need to do is to have some clear guidelines on when it is deployed to avoid gray areas. And then we secondly have to ensure that the officers of state who can deal with it, i.e. the police and the Judicial Service, are held accountable for it. That's why we went to Parliament to make a statement calling on Parliament to support. That's why we brought all the media stakeholder groups together to hold them accountable, and we need to continue with it until we get some traction.
And I want to get a quick update on the Coordinated Mechanism on the Safety of Journalists, CMSJ, which was established under your watch in 2021. Part of its mandate was to develop a framework for use by all stakeholders to protect journalists from danger, but also ensure prosecution of perpetrators of violence against journalists. I'm curious, how many cases have been prosecuted so far based on this framework since its establishment?
I don't have the data in front of me. I can forward it to you by tomorrow morning when I get it. But last year, at the end of the year, we held a public forum. I think something alluded to it, where we brought the police, and they accounted for all the cases we had reported to them, how many of them they had succeeded in prosecuting, how many of them they claimed they didn't have evidence. That was something alluded to, even including the Erastus case, and how many of them were still under investigation. My point is this: we have to consistently do this and hold them accountable on this data so that we get traction. I don't have the data right now. I can get it tomorrow morning for you, but we are committed to pushing this mechanism until it succeeds.
Mr. Jumfo, he makes a point about establishing the clear protocols around the blackout so that it is also not abused either by the GJA. You may be in the position right now, you have very genuine motives for doing this. Your interest is simply to protect journalists. But if you don't establish the clear protocols, which is objective and mutually acceptable by all, somebody else comes after you who has ulterior motive, can just pick on somebody and say media blackout. You agree with him that that protocol needs to be established, that you have to establish the basis, the evidence before you say you're blacking somebody out.
Okay, Evans, thank you so much. Let me commend Kujo for endorsing the GJ's position because, in fact, this is the first time I'm hearing his voice. In 2024, we were very much worried by the fact that the ministry hasn't voiced out on this two unwarranted attacks on our colleagues and our members. And I'm happy that today he has made it clear that it is our legitimate tool. And for that matter, it is within our constitutional right. And that is where I was expecting you to ask Ayabuafo as to whether we have breached any law or any constitution by exercising our constitutional right. Again, yes, it's very important for us to set the protocols right. When you look at, in the case of our Kumsen, we didn't just come out to blacklist her. We made it known. In fact, the issue happened on the 4th of January. Now, we make sure that our colleague reported the case, went for police medical report and all that. Our central regional branch of the GJ, when it was followed the matter, give us the report. We engage the major stakeholders, including Macmenu, who was actually the chairman of the vetting committee, Team B. And I think that he is responsible for those from the central region and all that. He was the chairman of that Team B. And he actually confirmed that he even have to give money to the victim, that is our colleague, at least to offset some of his medical bills. So we actually, I spoke to, aside that, we tried to speak to the MPP regional organizer, that is in the central region. We reached out to our council and all that. In our first press conference, we made certain demands and said that we expect that those demands follow. We said that, look, all what the protocols were established and the evidence deduced, we have no doubt, indicates that.
So you established the prima facie.
The prima facie.
Okay.
That these are people associated with our concern. Because the people came after our colleague. First, they are having a picture on their phone. They are going around looking for an identity. In fact, our colleague, the one who came under attack, is a mistaken identity because he wasn't actually the target.
But this other person we're looking for is a journalist.
It's a journalist, in fact, a correspondent with UTV. And I learned, and Evans, get it clear, they are brothers.
Okay.
In fact, the one they attack, I think is a senior brother or maybe a younger brother to the other one. And I think they resemble. So when they first saw him, 2 ladies confronted him and said that.
Okay, but I mean, that's an issue. I don't want because of time. But bottom line, you're saying that you go into it to establish the prima facie that the assault had indeed happened.
Yes.
And the identity of the person or the people around the person
yes,
who did it before you issued.
Of course.
Okay,
and even before then, we felt that, in fact, after the first press conference, when we made the demands, that wasn't when we blacklisted or blackout. We gave some ultimatum because we know how the police act when it comes to attack on journalists involving politicians. So we decided to give ultimatum that, look, the police should do ABCD, the MPP as a party at the regional level and the national level should also do ABCD. Our Muslims should also cooperate and make sure that those around here who actually...
So when all those failed, then you went ahead.
Then we went ahead.
And issued it. Okay.
So we followed the protocol.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are with the subject. And Mr. Ponkroma, if you look at the numbers as we started, we're talking about the numbers of people assaulted, and the mechanism was established in 2021. If the year after that, we had 7, according to the Media Foundation for West Africa tracking, 7 journalists were assaulted, and then 2023 we had 5 also assaulted. In fact, you say 9. You say 9.
Just between March and October.
That's 2020.
So that's 2023.
Okay, so that's last year. So 9. 2022. We have 7 as been recorded. The numbers show that the mechanism, at least, is not deterring enough.
The mechanism is pretty new, and we are, as I mentioned, asking for full enforcement of it. For all of these things, I'm not sure we expect that in the very first year or 2 or 3 we get the full results. But I think it's in consistently executing it that we get the results that we are looking for.
And that's Information Minister there, Professor Karikari, also joined us earlier. Something, thank you very much. Mr. Jumfo, thank you very much too. This is a conversation that will continue as this year begins to take shape as far as elections are concerned. And unfortunately, we run out of time. Enjoy the rest of your evening.